Good afternoon. My name is Clarence Trosho. I'm a lawyer from Trosho Law Office, a full service immigration law firm. The reason for this production, so to speak, is because there's so many news coming out daily, almost overnight, that could affect immigrants and their respective immigrant communities, especially in the United States. Just barely 48 hours ago, the Department of Homeland Security, the Immigration Service, issued a policy guideline requiring all F1 student visas, international students in the United States, whose programs or curricula are completely online, to either depart the United States. Uh, if not, they will be deported. Or if they're outside the United States, they will be barred from entering the United States. Or even if they're students already and they have departed temporarily, upon their return, they could be prevented from entering the United States again, unless or if their program is completely online. There was an exemption before for the prior fall, winter, and summer term because of the corona pandemic. This coming fall term, that would be September, today is July 8, in less than 8 weeks. The announcement was made July 6, 2 days ago. For the full term, they're required to have in-person courses. If not, they will be allowed to, they will be considered to have not been in status and they could be deported and they could be barred at the point of entry even. So what that means therefore is that if you don't have an in-person courses for September fall term, you could be deported. If you're outside the United States and you're applying for a student visa with the embassy, for example, your application could be denied unless you go to a school that has an in-person courses. Or even though you're presently a student and what you have are online courses and you leave the United States, for example, you're taking a break or something, you come back and your school does not offer in-person courses, you could be barred even with a visa from entering the United States again by the Border and Protection arm of the DHS or Department of Homeland Security. So therefore, it's very important for everyone to know this. I just have to stress that this is not a legal opinion. This is a venue or forum to discuss this. Now, the practical side is this. Even though everyone tries to comply with this requirement, for example, the students, from experience, an application for a student visa, change of status, or probably transfer from one school to the other actually takes time, more than the allocated or available time right now. In fact, for people previously who tried to change visa to a student visa, it took months for the application to be processed, meaning up to the point where in the request for additional evidence even to be approved or denied. So what that means, therefore, practically it is almost impossible to come up with a deadline. Not to mention, obviously, with the pandemic, it's going to be dangerous also from transferring from online to in-person courses. Now, you have to consider that from the perspective of the student, it's not that easy. You have to apply for school, you have to be accredited again, you need to show resources again. And in fact, if you're doing it online and suddenly you go to an in-person program, for example, in New York, it's not that easy to travel from the Bronx all the way to Brooklyn, not to mention that you'll be exposed to a possible danger to your health. The resources are simply not there. They may have the resources, but it's not that easy to raise the relevant necessary resources to do such a transfer. More so if you want to transfer the actual locality from where you're presently residing now to a place nearer to your school. That is from the student's perspective. From the school's perspective, you have to understand that right now, a good number of schools are not even sure whether they're going to do an in-person or online courses for several reasons. Number one, they could not compel teachers to do in-person courses if they're not comfortable with it. Number two, they might have the protocol or the physical arrangement, the size of the room, the classes. It takes time to figure that out. Number three, they're still trying to see whether it is safe to do so. And obviously, if you follow the CDC guidelines, it might make a major overhaul of the whole system of how they're going to conduct classes, hybrid or otherwise. Next to that, schools actually, especially for example, City University of New York, have their budget projected based on the number of foreign students that are coming in. Because foreign students or under F1 visa are actually paying full compensation, not compensation, full tuition for their schooling. They're not partly or in any way subsidized by the state, unlike the US citizen students in the state. So there might be a shortfall, there might be an uncertainty as to how many of these students could actually do the in-person courses or how many could be accommodated or whether it's worth it at all to do so. In any case, there's are budget constraints or impact on such a policy. Now, there are political reasons probably, but this is not the venue to do that. There are safety reasons. We're not professionals medically. We have the CDC guidelines. We have professional opinions as to that. What I could tell you is this. Under ordinary or normal circumstances, a law comes into being because there's a rationale for it. For example, there's a crime rate to be addressed. There's an objective of the law, that is to deter criminal acts, to lower the crime rate. And there's a process to that, due process, to put everyone on notice sufficiently and to have all parties give in their inputs as to the possible consequences so as to address it, prevent it, mitigate it, or probably improve on the possible problems that they may have. Unfortunately, in this case, there's no such thing. This policy came out of the blue, literally overnight. There's no input, there's no declaration of policy, there's no rationale. Parties such as the schools and the students were never heard. No such thing. Zilch. Nada. That is precisely the reason why Harvard University and MIT, among others, filed a suit against the federal government regarding this particular guideline. Now, I have to tell you that no two cases are the same. You could be an F1, but your circumstances are different, one from the other. So therefore, I would strongly suggest that you acquaint yourself with this policy guideline, which, by the way, is not even final. So therefore, it's subject to ramifications, changes, and in the meantime, you're dealing with how these things could affect you. So it's best for you to consult a lawyer. Do not rely on any information that you get from anybody or what could be applicable to them because yours is completely different. So consult a lawyer, not necessarily with us, but just in case you decide to do it with us. Our phone number is 212-374-9020 or 9747, or our email is ctrosho, C Charlie, T Tango, R Romeo, O Oscar, C Charlie, I International, O Oscar, at trosholawfirm.com so that we could specifically give you guidance regarding this matter. Thank you. Unfortunately, we don't have much time. The issue as it is so haphazardly done. There are ramifications beyond what we discussed today, but what we do see is the tip of the iceberg. So there's so much to be discussed. And unfortunately, I'd like to remember that it's just like you doing your gaming on your computer at home, and your uncle just barged in and said you could no longer do so in your laptop. But if you want to do so, you have to do it somewhere else in the coffee shop or in school. And you could do no such thing in your house anymore. And the first question you may ask is why not? Unfortunately, there's no answer as to why not. You just have to do it and you have to deal with it. So hopefully it gives you an insight and things to discuss and to think about and get proper legal guidance. Thank you. My name again is Clarence Trosho, Trosho Law Office here in New York.